Hey there all, Omen here from Transition Partners, here for another episode of Leadership Lessons in Cyber. Hi Matthew, how are you doing?
Good. Good morning, Aman. I appreciate the chance to chat.
Yeah, likewise. And we've had this in the works for a number of months now. And I think the reason why I think on both sides is I'm trying to get closer to the security community, trying to bring together relationships. And for yourself, there's probably a theme around this where you've done a lot of work extracurricular wise around books, your journey around security. And I suppose I wanted to talk about that. But beforehand, obviously it would go amiss if I didn't or you didn't tell anyone about sort of your background and your journey within cybersecurity, really, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So I wish I could say this was some great insight. I look back a number of years and I was interviewing to be a server at Chili's. And I was also interviewing to be a help desk person for a small company at the time called Coalfire. And at the time I was working for a small 3D animation company and a software development job. Just I think it was my first job after college. And I had realized that I didn't really want to be writing code. And I think at the time my aspirations were to become a Microsoft certified engineer, an MCSE. And so luckily I got the job. I struck up a good relationship with a longtime mentor now, Tony Trishelle, who has been very valuable in advising me throughout my career. And then from there, I transitioned into a consulting role and did that for 10 years for a number of different organizations, including Fishnet, which became 50% of the Optiv merger. And then I decided to get an MBA and transition into an operator role, and I ran the global security program for Crocs. And then more recently, I transitioned out to New York in 2017, and I've been with Logicworks for the last 5 years, leading the cybersecurity program here. So yeah, it's been a good go.
And obviously a lot of people talk about security and how they stumble upon it because it seems to be the kind of one department of a business where it was always seen as the backdoor function, the cost center. It's kind of changing now, the evolution. And that sort of brings me to your book, right? And we wanted to make a big theme on this. It's called the CISO evolution. There's a key theme around it, but I don't want to talk too much about it. I would love to understand from yourself, what's the book, what's the rationale towards it, and what ultimately can people get value from on that?
Well, I think after 15 years in cybersecurity, my co-author and I looked around and we decided that there were frequent executive level conversations in dinners and other things that just were very indicative that a number of security leaders lacked the fundamental business knowledge to really engage at an executive level. And then when you looked at the data from the National Association of Corporate Directors and others, they were saying that the information that came out of cybersecurity was the least informative, and at the same time, one of the most emergent risks from a financial perspective was cybersecurity. And so we took the angle that start within, be the change you want to see in the world, if you will. And we decided that we would try to bring some MBA concepts to the broader community, but heavily tailor them to the cybersecurity role, the cyber leadership role. So the book essentially covers business fundamentals, communication, and leadership. And we run through approximately the curriculum that both Rock and I did in our MBAs, and we present the materials very similar to an MBA in that there are we present the opportunity, which we have framed up and sort of said this is what you have as an opportunity, and then we present the theory, which is a little bit more academic, and then we apply that theory inside of the opportunity via a case study that's an actual event or thing that happened inside of one of our careers. And in some cases, I guess we've adapted the names to protect the innocent. But yeah, so it's a series of case studies basically on core topics that are germane to business acumen.
And actually, that's a good point. And I'm going to add another question in there that we didn't initially prepare for. With the business acumen side, right? A lot of security leaders now are saying that that's number one part and number one thought of the business. But for you, what's the approach when you speak to boards, when you speak to CEOs about understanding cybersecurity risk? How do you go about that?
Well, I think it's changing. So I think there's been a strong push and emergence on a couple of topics. You Bob Zukis from the Digital Directors Network is pushing heavy on systemic risk. And then I think there are a number of folks who have really made significant strides in the last 4 or 5 years related to cyber risk quantification. So, that's really, I think, going to have a transformative effect on the way that the business understands and thinks about creating an investment strategy to both enable upside risk and protect downside risk. I think historically, what we've done in order to really connect to the business, aside from all of this quantification stuff, which we have yet to see really take full hold in the industry, is spend some time to really understand. So in the book, for example, we talk about and give a framework for framing up your business model and really understanding business models. We talk about influence strategies and stakeholder maps. We talk about how do you read a financial statement. We talk about how do you understand key metrics from a valuation perspective. So when you go in and you talk about the next investment, you're not talking about how many vulnerabilities or whatever. You're talking about how you're going to take away some of the downside risk on the next investment, which is expected to grow enterprise value by X%, or you have a more structured and functional discussion on how if there's a pursuit of path to profitability, that you're going to continue to reduce risk inside the business while reducing control friction and minimizing your costs. And here's how you can do those things. So I think I think coming up with functional ways to measure your security program and demonstrate what you're doing to have a tangible impact on the business makes a ton of sense. And then the last thing I'll just say is, look, the World Economic Forum predicts that there's something like 60% of global GDP is going to be founded on the back of digital, and 70% of the growth is going to come from digital platforms in the future. So all of that sort of marries up with what you continue to hear in the news. All businesses are digital, and most of the value being created is digital. So I think whether we want cybersecurity leaders to step into the limelight or to have a seat at the table or not, we're going to essentially be forced to the table, and those folks who are equipped with the skills to hold the conversation will emerge to the top, and those folks who just don't have the competence will be left in the technical ranks, and they just won't get the seat at the table.
And again, I'm going to do another question and probably two more questions that we didn't prepare for, but you've kind of made it very aligned with sort of the current goals, how to relate to business, that kind of thing. But we're looking at the current potential recession, the hardships now. Cybersecurity seems to be the one that's going to be the last hit because of the risk. So when we look at budgets being slashed, security is definitely part of that. But how would you remain resilient in keeping, attracting, and building teams in this, I suppose, current time, given the recessions that are looming?
Yeah. Well, we do have again, in the book, there's a whole section on creating high-performing teams, attracting talent, and retaining talent. And my co-author is probably best suited to talk to that. Aside from, I think, the robust content in the book, for me, it's always been about connecting to the why and helping people understand what it is that they do. So I have a compliance manager on my team, and he's very clear that 75% of the revenue in our business and the vast majority of the logos are directly tied to us satisfactorily passing our audits. And so when we have conversations inside the business, it's not a question of, oh, compliance is asking this. It's a question of, this is a mandated requirement coming directly from our customers. This is a customer satisfaction issue. And so folks in the customer success arena can get on board with what we're doing. Folks who are taking a look at functional and non-functional requirements for some of the software that we write can easily resonates, although it's a non-functional requirement. This is clearly something that our customers are demanding for us, and it is actually a part of the job, as opposed to a distraction that the security guys have brought up for no reason. So I think attracting and retaining talent, for me, in a lot of ways, has to do with making sure that people feel connected to a sense of purpose. And then there's all kinds of other things from a talent management perspective that we do as an organization. So we're in my current org, we're listed in the best and the brightest, and in Crane's top 100 locations in New York to work for. So clearly cultivating a strong, diverse culture, and valuing people and allowing them to bring their whole selves to work is certainly something that's obviously important. And that's not something that I think is only done in security, but is supported or augmented by security. But the broader talent strategy needs to be critical. And then there are other policies, work from anywhere and other things like that, that are going to influence whether you attract and retain the best talent. So you got to pay people well and all the other things, but.
Yeah, and last question, and it's really unrelated to anything security, but obviously you've got a lot to give, a lot to talk about. Where can people find you? What if they want to ask any questions to you?
Well, I think the first place to start is probably CISOevolution.com. My co-author and I are both linked in directly from there, and then we've got links to, if people want to consume the book. We've published through a tier 1 publisher, Wiley, and the good news about that is they've made it broadly available, so it's in Audible or Kindle or on your Apple iBooks or any of those. And then, of course, there's obviously a physical copy. There's a physical copy. I don't know if you can see that.
If you could move that slightly across, it was in the.
There we go.
There we go.
Anyway, yeah, I think that's the best place, and we love the engagement. It's great. We've gotten a number of really interesting comments on LinkedIn, and we've had a surprising amount of engagement, and also had people sort of share how they're putting our concepts to work in ways that we had never imagined. So it's really exciting to see the momentum, and also to just see the community engage and sort of adapt these concepts and really put them to work inside their businesses. So CISOevolution.com is the best.
Perfect. Any other comments before we go, or?
No, I mean, I think, appreciate the opportunity to reach your audience, and hope to you look forward to some further engagement. And yeah, that I would say there.
Likewise. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Leadership Lessons in Cyber. I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode.